Hey guys, what's going on? Brian here with a NXT recap for this week's episode of NXT. Before I get into the recap, um, I want to send my condolences to the family and friends of Jay Briscoe, who passed away today at the age of 38. It was um, Even on NXT tonight, they did acknowledge his passing. Um, and when they announced that he passed away, that he died, you could tell they were in shock when they made the announcement. Um, because apparently it happened. He died today, and and um, there are reports going around that he was involved in a car accident that left two people dead. Of course, from the report, he was one of the people that died in the accident. Uh, the other one, the other person has not been, uh, their identity has not been released. That's what preliminary reports are saying. That's what reports have been saying. I think they said that Dave Meltzer and from the Wrestling Observer reported that. Apparently, according to the one link that I clicked on, because somebody wrote a comment about his passing, and they linked it happened in Delaware tonight at about 5:30. Um, you know, hopefully some more information will be released of what happened, and you know, but it is a sad situation. Uh, Jay Briscoe, of course, with his brother Mark, 13-time Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. I'm looking at. This is from their Jay Briscoe's Wikipedia. They have other championships that he's held. He's held the Combat Zone Wrestling Tag Team Championships with Mark on two separate occasions. Former Full Impact Pro Tag Champs. They are the current the Briscoes are the current House of Glory Tag Team Champions, as well as the current Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with those championships as far as House of Glory, and of course Ring of Honor, which AEW owns Ring of Honor. So uh, what they're going to do with that, with the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. They've held the Impact World Tag titles. Jay Briscoe, a former two-time Ring of Honor World Champion, Ring of Honor World Television Champion. If I'm not mistaken, let me double check. Sorry, guys, if I. Uh, oh, actually, I stand corrected. Sorry about that, guys. Um, he's a two-time former Ring of Honor World Champion, 13-time World Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champion, as well as a former World Six-Man Tag Team Champion that he held with Bully Ray and his brother Mark. But like I said, this is just a sad situation. Sad thing to hear. Um, the Briscoes are one of my favorite tag teams. Jay, when he was in Ring of Honor, when he was the world champion in Ring of Honor, he had some really great matches with Jay Lethal. It's just a sad situation. Um, uh, like I said, my condolences go out to his family and his friends at this time. And he will be missed. Um, like I said, he was very entertaining. Um, the Briscoes, specifically Jay, he really didn't let anything, as far as his mouth was concerned, he really didn't care what he said. As far as promos, anybody that watched him doing promos, uh, uh, he was like he really went, he would really go off on on people and really say what he really felt. But it is going to be a sad day. It is a sad day indeed. Um, Jay Briscoe, dead at age 38. Um, so, like I said, my condolences go out to his family and friends. Uh, it's just shocking, and it was shocking when I heard it on NXT when they announced it. So, but getting into tonight's NXT show, I'm just gonna really quickly go through. We saw Apollo Crews and Axiom in tag team action against Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. Apollo Crews and Axiom won. There was a segment where Tony D'Angelo, the Don of NXT, made Stacks the underboss. We heard from Tiffany Stratton. Uh, we heard from Tiffany Stratton, who returned last week. She talked about the being kicked out of her own locker room, and it was turned into the NXT women's locker room. And next week, she will be facing Indy Hartwell next week on NXT. We heard from Toxic Attraction, Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane, who last week were determined the co-winners of the Battle Royal to determine the number one contender to the NXT Women's Championship. Those Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane will challenge Roxanne Perez in a triple threat match at NXT Vengeance Day coming up on February 4th. This would lead to Lyra Valkyria, who was also part of the Battle Royal last week. She came out to confront Toxic Attraction, saying that if it wasn't for Cora Jade last week, she would have won the Battle Royal last week. Then she got in the ring. Toxic Attraction went after her. Here comes Roxanne Perez to make the save. This would lead to the main event being made for this week's episode of Roxanne Perez and Lyra Valkyria taking on Toxic Attraction, and I'll get into that in just a minute. I'm sorry, guys, if I'm not my usual speedy self. I'm just in shock about Jay Briscoe's passing. I mean, it's just, when I heard it, I was like, what? Whoa. I'm like, I mean, but it's still shocking, to say the very least. We heard from this new girl that apparently is going to be coming to NXT pretty soon, Stevie Turner. We heard from Dijak, who earned an opportunity last week to challenge for the NXT North American Championship and challenging Wes Lee. That match will happen at NXT Vengeance Day. We heard from Grayson Waller, who came up short last week at NXT New Year's Evil when he challenged for the NXT Championship. He lost via countout after the ropes broke twice during his match against Braun Breaker. Of course, last week it was announced that at NXT Vengeance Day, to have a decisive winner, Grayson Waller will once again challenge Braun Breaker for the NXT Championship. This time it will be inside of a steel cage, and that's going to be set for NXT Vengeance Day. So he talked about that matchup. We saw Alba. We saw Alba Fire in action. She lost to So Ruka. Then in a backstage segment a little bit later on, Alba Fire was going after a referee until the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, stopped her, and this would lead to Alba Fire challenging Chance and Carter for a shot at the NXT Tag Team Championships. That match will happen next week. We saw Gallus, who made their return from suspension. They defeated Briggs and Jensen um, when it became a 2-on-1 situation where I think it was Briggs, or no, it was Jensen that got backdropped on the outside of the ring on the concrete, and then when the medical personnel, Valen Henley and Kiana James, who has apparently taken an interest in um, Brooks Jensen, this led to Briggs being left by himself to uh, lose to Gallus. There was um, there was a Chase University backstage segment involving Thea Hale, uh, Duke Hudson, and Chase, the 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 teacher, whatever it is. Then we saw Thea Hale in action. She finally picked up her first win over Valentina Verois. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. Electra Lopez um, tried to help Valentina by handing her a pair of brass knuckles, but Valentina was not having any of it, and that's what cost her the victory. Then we had a backstage or an in-ring segment involving the NXT Tag Team Champions, The New Day, Gallus, and Pretty Deadly that led to a brawl. This led to the announcement being made that at NXT Vengeance Day, New Day will defend the NXT Tag Team Championships against Gallus and Pretty Deadly in a triple threat match. Then we had a Roxanne Perez and Lyra Valkyria backstage interview. We had an interview. There was an interview with the NXT champion Braun Breaker. Tyler Bate made his in-ring return to NXT, defeating Javier Bernal. And in the main event, it was Lyra Valkyria and Roxanne Perez picking up the win over Toxic Attraction, Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane, when there was a bit of a accidental between Gigi and JC, where JC went to go hit Roxanne with a boot, and Roxanne moved out of the way, and it wound up hitting Gigi. So that was pretty much it for this week's episode of NXT. Overall, I mean, it was an okay episode. So with that in mind, sorry about this long video. So yeah, pretty much this has been my NXT recap for this week's episode. As always, I am Brian, and I will see you next time. See ya.